He's just doing it while we're sitting here, you know?
Yeah.
Dang, okay.
Yeah.
So what's going on? I guess we're starting, hey?
We're starting, and yeah. So first of all, you're looking quite dapper today, Ben.
Thank you. I try my best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you show up to all of your appointments looking like that, or?
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, I like
Yeah.
to, because I kind of go off what Ryan Serhant says a little bit, and you know, you got two opportunities to make a first impression when they first see you, when you first open your mouth. So it's kind of a respect thing to my clients.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess for people who don't know you, do you want to give a little like 30-second elevator pitch
Absolutely.
as to who Ben Archibald is?
Elevator pitch to me. Great question. So, the cut and dry is, I'm a realtor here in Calgary. I've been selling real estate since 19, in that neighborhood, 1920. I first kind of got into the business, was doing a heavy duty mechanic apprenticeship before I made the switch. And then all of a sudden, you know, everybody around me was kind of just like, you should try real estate, try the waters. And I was like, why not? And I didn't know anything about the business at the time. Obviously, moved around a lot, didn't know a whole lot though. And turned around, and just jumped on in and found Brian by a complete fluke. And he was like, yeah, come out and meet me. And I did. And then he was like, oh yeah. He's like, well, if you want to come shadow me for a while, you can. And did that for about a week. And he's like, well, if you want to work with me, that we can make that work too. And so we did. I worked with him for probably 6 months, 7 months. And then he's like, man, you got to get licensed. And I was like, all right. So I did the course. I was working for Brian during the day, did the course at night while I was commuting like an hour and a half to and from Calgary. And after that, it was started selling real estate, and the rest is history.
Commuting an hour and a half to and from where though?
Vulcan. Yeah, that's where my parents lived at the time. They moved down to an acreage in Vulcan.
Yeah.
And obviously, I was, a young kid, didn't have a lot of money. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to make this work. But to make it work, I have to drive like an hour and a half one way. So I'd meet Brian at his office at the time was Remax House of Real Estate. And commuted there every morning. I was like, my routine would be like, go to bed, wake up in the morning at like 5:45, 5:30, hop in my truck and drive to work, right? I'd get to the office around like 7:30, 8 o'clock. I always tried to meet Brian there for around that time because that's when he likes to get going. And we'd sit there and we'd call through, we'd do role play, we'd call through people, we'd be calling prospects, we'd be calling leads and stuff like that. And after that, Brian would kind of go off on appointments in the afternoon. I'd continue to call until like 3 o'clock. I'd try to beat traffic, drive the hour and a half home, do a bunch of admin stuff and a bunch of admin work when I got home. And then go to bed at like, 9 o'clock. I was basically working like 12, 14-hour days solid.
Yeah, that's a grind.
For like 7-8 months. Yeah.
Yeah, you can do that when you're young. Speaking of how young you are, like how old are you and how old do people think you are, Ben?
Yeah.
When they first see you?
No, that's a great question.
Yeah.
It's always a funny thing. To be honest with you, I never usually like answering it. I'm 23, recently turned in January. But no, I started when I was 19. Everybody thinks, usually my clients, sometimes it's fun to tell them because especially at the end of a transaction, they're like, oh my goodness, you're doing so good. Keep going. But other times it's, I don't know. You still have that stigma where a lot of you think that, you have to be a certain age to do something. You have to have, a certain level of experience, things like that. But the reality is, if you know what you're talking about, you are professional about it. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you try your best and you're, doing everything you can and you're hustling and everything like that. And like I said, you know what you're talking about and you know the market and you're good at what you do. It doesn't make a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I know you can kind of like use that to your advantage though, because you look a little bit older.
Yeah, no, a lot of people are like, they always guess it's 30s. They always guess it's like late 20s, early 30s. That's always the guess. They're like, yeah, well, how old do you think I am? Because that's usually sometimes how I like to rebuttal it. Yeah. And a lot of times it's like, oh yeah, maybe I was thinking you're 29 or maybe early 30s, something like that. Especially since I'm married, right? So with them, when I'm like, oh yeah, I'm married and this and that, people always expect a lot older. And then when it's 23, it's kind of, oh my word.
Yeah, this guy's got his shit together. 23.
I wouldn't say that. But I'm working at it. You know what? It's progress.
Well, compared to most like 23-year-olds, and I also feel like people don't take you seriously as an adult until you're like 25.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing that I struggled with heavily when I got into the career. Was just at the end of the day, you look at everybody else. I think the average realtor age is like, I don't know, they're like 40s or 50s, right? Like that's what the statistic was. And so I always sat back when I first got in. To be honest with you, when I first got into the business, I was like, I have to drive a fancy car. I have to wear a suit. I have to know and study the market as much as possible, as well as like working under Brian helped a lot as well. But I was like, my mentality is I have to have this stuff, because if I don't dress in a fancy suit, if I don't drive the fancy car, people are going to question my success. And if they question your success, they're going to question my age. And then I'm at a losing battle at that point, especially when I was brand new and I couldn't turn around and say, oh, I have, 50 or 60 million in sales history. Right. So.
Yeah. So tell people how you actually got in touch with Brian, because did you click a Facebook ad or something?
Yeah,
he was trying to like sell you a house. And then,
that's a funny story.
And then he picks up the phone. He was like, "Yo, you want to buy a house?" And
you're
like,
yeah,
kind of, but not really. Yeah.
No, you're exactly right. That whole story was funny. That was the cut and the long and short of that one was basically like when I first got into the business, I thought it was like every other business, right? Yeah. People are in an office and you walk in and you hand a resume and say, I want to work for somebody. So that's what I did, right? I come from the oil field background kind of thing, right? So I was going to every brokerage. Right when we got to Calgary, I was going around to every brokerage. I was like handing out resumes. I was trying to like go to every brokerage and say, hey, do you have a like high producer realtors here that like want an assistant or something like that? Because at the time I just wanted to get my feet wet. I wanted to figure out what real estate was and if I would even, entertain it, right? Plus there's always that saying in the back of your head where it's like, find somebody that's living your ideal life, offer to work for them for free, and then after 90 days, if it pans out, then reevaluate, right? So that's kind of the mentality I walked into it with. But I was going brokerage to brokerage, handing out resumes, and then I was like, figured out finally, all right, no realtor really works from their brokerage or an office, right? Everybody's always out doing stuff, things like that. So I went online, typed up top realtors in Calgary, clicked on one button, and it all of a sudden put me into like this funnel, right? So it was basically saying like, okay, do you have a house to buy or sell? Are you looking to buy or sell? And obviously I clicked sell. And then it was like, well, a little bit of information on the house. So I was like, $2 million house, 6 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, this and that. Like I typed in the most, ridiculous, basically criteria you could.
This guy's got to pick up the phone and call me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't even think that because I thought you'd type in the information and then it'd give you a list, right? Then from that list I'd call. But I just typed in this information. Next thing I know, I was just like, oh, okay, Brian Howard, whatever. And so I saw that name come up. And then I turned around and I was like, all right, well, that's it. I tried to find his information. It didn't have it. And so I just logged off the website and walked outside. And when I was filling in that criteria, I didn't realize, but I also put my contact information in there. Walked outside. I'm not kidding. Like 10, 20 minutes later, max, I get a phone call. Hey, this is Brian Howard with Remax House Real Estate. I was just like, hey, Brian. I was like, wow, look, why are you calling me? He's like, well, can I help you sell your house? Like, obviously, there's more to the conversation, but he basically said, can I help you sell your house? Obviously, $2 million and all this other stuff. He was like, wow, this is a home run for an online lead.
Yeah, he
right?
was thinking like, cha-ching.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I actually responded. I was like, well, actually, I'm looking to get into the business. Can I work for you? And right after that, he was like, well, meet me at my office in Remax House tomorrow. And we can sit down and see if we could make something work or see if it would be worth it. Yeah. And so we did. And yeah, the rest is history. But I met Brian from clicking on a lead. And it was funny because once I started working with him and I was like helping him call leads and stuff like that, like an ISA, it was funny because I actually saw my information and all the details that I put in on the backside because he was using Nuage at the time. So it was like an online lead generation.
Were you ever a lead that he wanted you to call, like call Ben Archibald?
100%. Yeah. He was asking me. He was like, filter
Follow
through.
up with Ben.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He was just like, go stand in a mirror. All right. Hey, how you doing? You still looking to buy or sell? No. And that's it. Yeah. I saw myself in the system and everything like that and how he got me and how he called me. Yeah, no, it's a funny story. I always look at it as like, we've talked about this before, but it's like you're one decision away from a different life, right? Like what would have happened if you wouldn't have clicked that lead, right? Click that link, right? What would have happened if you wouldn't made that phone call, right? Those little things just can be life-changing.
The butterfly effect. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had one of those a few years ago. I was on my 19th birthday. I was driving from Lloydminster to Saskatoon, and there was like my friend lived in Saskatoon at the time. I lived in Lloydminster, but because I was turning 19, I was finally legal in Saskatchewan.
Yeah. We
were like, let's go party, basically, right? So driving there, and it's like blizzarding on that day. And somewhere between North Battleford and Saskatoon, I like slid into the ditch, and the trip to get there is usually like 2.5 hours. It took me like 5 hours to get there that day just because people were driving like 60, 70 on the highway and stuff, right? And the roads were just littered with people in the ditch too. So I was just like, oh, fuck, I'm like one of 100 people to slide into the ditch, right? And so
you're a statistic.
yeah, I was like, fuck, like I'm never getting out of here. So
Yeah.
fortunately, like I was driving a truck at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I just put it in like 4-wheel drive, and then so I like drove down a hill, and it was like fortunate that I was like I could drive down the hill to like get some momentum.
Yeah.
And then in like really thick snow too. And then I used that momentum to just like propel myself up and get back onto the road. And I kept driving, and then
Hold up. What were you driving?
it was a 2001 Chevy Silverado.
Nice. Okay. I was
Yeah,
for a second, I thought you were driving your car. I was like, wow, you went banging in your car? You're
Yeah.
just ripping through the ditch.
Yeah, I had this 2001 Silverado I bought in high school. It had 65,000 K on it when I bought it. That was in like 2016.
Get out, hey?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's like what I did.
Yeah. It was a mint truck, and so yeah. The only downfall was like I couldn't go 4x4 on the highway because those older trucks you could only go like 80 or something.
Yeah, it
4x4.
has a limiter.
So when I was driving on the highway, I was just in rear wheel drive. I remember just like giving a little bit of gas and going, and then just slide into the ditch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, so I get out of that ditch, and then I go party that night, and I ended up like meeting this girl, and we dated for 2 years. And so I think of it as like if I would have like stayed in that ditch, like maybe I wouldn't have like moved to Saskatoon. Maybe I wouldn't have like sold cars. Maybe I would never have met Drew. Maybe I would have never,
100%.
did QuikSell.
Exactly.
Right?
It's the butterfly effect, man, like you said.
If I was just stuck in that ditch,
Right?
and I didn't go partying that night, like
Right?
maybe I'd just be a loser now. So that's a lesson to everyone at home.
Yeah, exactly. Take the chance.
If you're gonna go to a party, make sure you make it there on time.
Yeah, we're giving party advice here.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Well, and that's it, right? You're that close to a different life,
Yeah.
right? That's just it blows my mind. I think about it regularly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, tell me about like your first deal in real estate.
Oh man. To be honest with you, I don't really remember my first deal a whole lot. Actually, no, I do. Yeah, so that was a great client of mine. I was actually I was working him a little bit before I finished my license. It was somebody that Brian knew, right? It was somebody that Brian knew, and he passed over to me, probably a number of months beforehand. So I was just periodically touching base with him, saying, hey, how you doing? Are you still, you still in the market? Things like that. And yeah, we went through and we toured a bunch of houses, and then at the end of the day, I sold him a house in Woodbine. Yeah, sold him a house in Woodbine, and he was planning to go in there and do a full renovation on it. And this was before bidding wars, before the chaos hit, really. And man, I look back at those prices, and I'm still astonished. Like that's back when you're buying a detached house for like $450, right? $475 even, right? And then all of a sudden, 2021 and 2022 hit, and it was just astronomical.
Yeah, schmovid with low interest rates,
Exactly.
super high demand, or at least in Calgary, anyways, right?
Yeah. Well, everybody wanted to move here all of a sudden, right? The Alberta government was doing a bunch of media releases to Ontario and BC, and they were doing it like the Move to Calgary campaigns, which is funny because I never really knew about it until I got a Toronto client. They were like, oh yeah, it's all over the news, it's all over the radio, like Move to Calgary is like this big oasis, right? And then all of a sudden it just took off, and I think COVID changed a lot of that and a lot of perspectives, and people just started flocking here.
Yeah. Did you know that people are moving to like from a different province to Alberta by like 10 times more than any other province?
Is that right?
Yeah.
I believe it. We've seen some crazy stuff here, but that's a wild statistic.
Yeah.
Wow, 10% more?
10 times more.
10 times more.
Yeah. So for every person that's like moving from Ontario to a different province,
Yeah.
there's 10 people moving from Ontario to Alberta.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That is what? No, I didn't know that statistic. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I just heard it the other day. I don't know how accurate it is. Like, someone in the comments is gonna like
You're sitting over here. You're
roast
like,
me and just be like, "Yeah, that's not true."
You're like, I'm not going to source my source.
Yeah.
Not going to source my information. No, I get it though. Because yeah, Calgary's like, there's a lot of things that are drawing a lot of people here. And there's a lot of like, I've helped a number of people too that are like heading up new divisions of a business or heading up, different aspects of a company from, other areas. Right. And so there's a lot of things going towards Calgary that's really growing the actual society and just the economy, right? Like we are so heavily oil and gas driven, right? We still are. That is probably, I don't know the exact stats, but probably our primary primary resource here. But at the end of the day, like, we're seeing a lot more diversity here. We're seeing a lot of growth. And I think, Brian mentioned this too, is like once economy gets to around 1.7 million in population, it starts to almost become like a revolving wheel, right? Where it just kind of takes care of itself and just keeps going. Because if, say, one sector started to lag, the other sectors would kind of make it up, right? So that's where Calgary's starting to become an interesting area, and it's starting to kind of reach that point, I think, where we're starting to see a little bit more stability economic-wise.
Yeah, Calgary is kind of almost reaching that critical mass of 1.7, because if I'm not mistaken, what are you at right now, 1.4 or 5?
Yeah, well, I think like it depends on if you're including the Calgary area or just Calgary, but I'm pretty sure we're around like 1.6, 1.7. We're right there. Yeah, like we're big.
Yeah, it's going to be another Toronto.
That's what I've heard some people speculate about that. Some people are speculating now. They're like, well, is Calgary going to be the next Toronto or Ontario, right? Other people are like, no, Toronto's got its export and, its trade and things like that. And same with Vancouver, whereas Calgary doesn't, Calgary's oil and gas. But, I think a lot of people don't realize that Calgary was pretty equivalent to Vancouver and Toronto up until I think it was about 2010 to 14 in that area. It was kind of like the three major hitters. Then all of a sudden the oil and gas tanked. So 2014, Calgary started to kind of become in a steady downfall. And then that's when Toronto and Vancouver made their boom for the last, 12, 14 years. And just recently when interest rates started to go wild, everybody started to say, okay, well, this is a little bit unaffordable. They're starting to see chaos over there. We're seeing people flock here. Because at the time, you could still buy a single-family home in Calgary for $450,000, $500,000, which is unheard of. You wouldn't even get a condo in Toronto or Vancouver for that. Right? Even now, there's still unaffordability starting to become less attainable slowly, but there's still affordability, right? Like you can still buy a house for, $550. It's hard, but you can, right? And you can still buy condos for, $300,000, $300,000, $400,000. And you can still buy, townhouses for a similar, right? $300,000 to $500,000, right? Like you still have options. Whereas I think the average price of a detached home in Vancouver is like, I don't know, like 1.2, 1.5, right? Somewhere in that neighborhood. And I just recently helped a Vancouver buyer. He was a young guy. And he was like, okay, well, I have two options. I could either go with a condo in Vancouver for like $680, right? Or $600. Or I could go with this full detached home just north of Calgary for $600, right? And he's like, well, Vancouver's an appreciation play and Calgary's a cash flow play, which is true because of the affordability. But at the same time, with the way the market's going right now, Calgary's also an appreciation play. Mm-hmm. Obviously, don't bank on it. Bank on cash flow, and then appreciation just the cherry on top. But that's what you have.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, people are just coming out here. Lots of, so if somebody was living in Vancouver or Toronto, what kind of jobs would they have that they could get here? Like, are there lots of jobs out here that they could get?
Yeah, honestly, I can't speak to that a ton. From what I can tell, there's definitely opportunities out there. From what I can see, there's definitely a little bit of a job shortage, from my understanding, just because like my wife and I know my assistant's looking for a hire as well, and some other people like that. And they're getting like hundreds of applications. Right, so there's definitely shortages, but there at the same time, the thing is that Calgary has surrounding cities as well: Okotoks, Airdrie, Cochrane, Chestermere. Right, so you have other areas to go to as well. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, oil and gas is huge out here. I have a lot of friends that work the rigs. Right, young guys, great opportunities out there. I hear the film industry is really getting larger. Right, a lot of people are coming here for the UFC and schooling. And on top of that, from what I hear, tax codes here are also a lot more lenient than BC. I've seen a lot of businesses move here just for that reason.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. No, but no, exactly. You're 100% right. Like a lot of small businesses are moving here for tax purposes, right? And that's a huge thing, right? And so having that there with just the overall economy growing, with Banff right there, and having the easy access to the mountains, like we're what, an hour and a half to Lake Louise, right? It's beautiful, man. It's beautiful.
Yeah. I've never been to BC.
You've never been to BC?
Never. Yeah.
Man, you have to go.
I know. I'm just like some kid from Saskatchewan,
Go driving. You know what you could do? You could go driving to Banff, miss the turnoff, get into a deep conversation, and land at radio. I did that once. I'm speaking from experience on that one.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we were driving. We were going to Banff.
Yeah.
And we missed the turnoff. We were in a detailed conversation. Then all of a sudden, we ended up in a radium because we lost track of time and we just wanted to drive. It's not that far. It's very close.
Like how close? Like half hour or something? Or?
From here to here to BC. No, wow. Well, from here to BC, like you can be there in like I think 3 hours max.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know the exact numbers, but about 3 hours.
Yeah, when I tell people I've like never been to BC, it like blows their minds.
Man,
like it didn't blow their mind in Saskatoon, but it would blow their if I'm here, everyone's just like, what? Like you're here? What?
Well, that's because that's where everybody goes. Like you want to go for a long weekend, go to Kelowna, right? Go boating, do something like that. Because Kelowna, obviously, nicer weather than Calgary, and it's not too far, right? But at the same time, it's I think that's where everybody goes from Alberta. And a lot of people retire there too. A lot of people retire to BC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how far away is Kelowna?
Man, you're asking me some hard-hitting statistical questions.
I know. It's just like, well, I guess like for anyone that like wants to move to Calgary to like reap the benefits of living in Calgary but going to BC, like that's a good question for them, right?
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah. If you're looking at Kelowna, I don't know. To be honest with you, I'm taking a complete stab in the dark. I think off the top of my head, it's like 8 or 9 hours drive, right? So it's not terrible, but for like a long weekend, you leave in the morning, you get there in the evening, right? You get there in the evening and then you enjoy your weekend and then you drive back, right?
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of having BC so close, because I remember the most vivid thing is when I was a kid, we'd have like harsh winters here, right? It would be like, we'd have 2-3 feet of snow, -30, and we're going over to move my grandparents because I was originally born in Abbotsford. Yeah. So we were going to move my grandparents back. We had 2 feet of snow. It was like -30 here, and we're driving. I go to sleep. I'm sleeping for a while, and then I wake up. And as we're driving through the Coquihalla, and then we get down, down to the southwest coast, right? Down by like Vancouver, Abbotsford and stuff. It was like, it was like it was like +5 in the morning, and then it'd get up to like 20. You'd see flowers. You would see, green grass and all that. And that was within like, I don't know the exact stats, but like I said, like I think it's within like a 8 or 10, 12, maybe 13-hour drive, right? Yeah. And that just blew my mind. Right? Within like, 1 or 2 days of driving, right? One day, say 2 days of like softer driving, you have 2 completely different climates. Yeah. Right? But no, I always loved that.
Could be like -50 here. Yeah. Mother Nature just does whatever it wants out here.
Exactly.
-40 and then like +2 the next week.
I'll tell you one thing though. When you go to BC and you experience cold, it is way different than Calgary cold.
How come?
Well, because like I've talked to actually a lot of BC people about that. They're like, oh, -40 is so bad. I would argue that -5 or -10 in BC is equivalent to like a -40, 45 out here, because cold.
Is it just dry air or something? Is it just dry?
You got it. Yeah. Like Calgary has such a dry climate, right? It's so dry, right? But if you go to BC, it's so humid because you have the ocean right there, right? So it's bone chilling cold, right? Like if you're here in Calgary and it's super cold, you throw on a couple, you throw on some, a hoodie, some sweats, you throw on a nice jacket, right? You throw on a puffy jacket and you're fine. But if you're over in BC and it's like, -10, you can't really get away from it. It's bone chilling, right? Like it's freezing cold. Like here, you can kind of get away from it, throwing enough layers on and not staying outside too long. BC, you're freezing. Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah. So don't go to BC.
Yeah,
in the winter.
Don't go to BC.
Yeah.
Bad prices, bad taxes. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, you know what BC stands for?
What?
Bring cash.
Bring cash. That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. You got to have money to move there.
Yeah, my brother-in-law's from Mission, BC. That's where they shot Riverdale.
No way.
Yeah, that's what he would always tell me. He's like, yeah, BC stands for bring cash.
Yeah, no, I was born in Abbotsford, and I think I lived in Mission at one point in that area.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. I was super young. Yeah, I moved around BC a little bit, and then I think we left BC when I was like 4 or 5. But
yeah, I feel like you've lived everywhere. Like you told me, Edmonton, Vulcan, like wherever that is.
Yeah, no, we moved
nowhere.
Abbotsford. I've lived in Edmonton, just east of Edmonton, and then I lived in Edson, Drayton Valley. I lived in Vulcan, and now in Calgary.
And Wetaskiwin and Wainwright.
Oh yeah, Wainwright. I forgot. Oh, and Three Hills too.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've lived around a lot of places. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if we, like, did you play hockey growing up?
Yeah, I did.
I wonder if we would have played against each other. Because, like, we played Wainwright all the time.
Maybe. No, I wouldn't have played hockey in Wainwright.
Oh.
No, not in Wainwright. I started playing hockey when we hit Three Hills. So when I was like 6 or 7, I started to play Tykes, and then I got transferred into pond hockey.
Yeah.
I was playing a lot of pond hockey. I need to get back into hockey. I love hockey. It's such a good sport.
Strip a little beer league.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I'd be all over a beer league. I just need to do it. Been talking about it for years now.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Just go out, shoot some pucks, throw some chirps out there.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
It's all about, it's all about fun and games, and until you really get some competition going, then that's when the chirps start flying,
Yeah. When I was a ref, I would like chirp players.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I've always wondered. I have an old friend from high school he's a ref, and he's been reffing for a long time. And I've always wondered what it'd be like to be a ref, because everybody hates you. You make a bad call, the fans hate you.
Yeah.
You make a bad call, the other team hates you. You make a good call, then the other team still hates you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
It kind of depends. Like, I remember when I was reffing, like, I was, like, after like 5 or 6 years, like I did it for 7 years, I was part of like the good refs or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we'd be invited to like travel to different places. Like I'd go to, from Lloydminster, I'd go to like Wainwright for a game, or I'd go to like Cold Lake, or what are those, like Onion Lake,
Yeah.
or just like, travel around to like do some like junior beer and stuff like that. And like the higher level hockey is always so much better, because usually like the players are more intelligent, like the fans are more intelligent. Whereas like if you're reffing like a house league hockey game,
Yeah.
like most of the parents aren't like super hockey smart, neither are the players. And the players always like shoot the puck at you too. Like they'll go to like dump it in, and they'll like hit you in the sternum or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Their kid gets hit, and they're cussing you out because you didn't make a call or
Yeah,
something.
I was like, or if you're like, if you're reffing like AAA, the kids will like dangle around you, they'll like put it like between your legs or some shit.
You're just standing there. You're just like, don't hit me.
Yeah. I was just like, and it's funny too. Like whenever like a ref gets hit with the puck or something, everyone's like, oh, like the fans get crazy. They get all super upset.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there like, I didn't want to get hit with the puck. Like he just shot it at me. Like yell at him.
Yeah, right. You're delay a game. What the heck?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Dang. So you wanted to be a ref?
Yeah, I did it from like 12 till I was 19.
Is that right, eh?
Yeah.
Crap. That's not bad.
Yeah. I quit, and it was mostly just because like I moved, but I always wonder, like, maybe I could have gone to the dub or something. My one friend that I actually reffed with, he actually got into like the dub. He was like lines in the dub in Regina.
Is that right?
Yeah, he lives in Regina right now. He works for CTV. He's actually like an anchor on like the news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crap. I wonder what it'd be like to be a NHL ref, right? Especially like if you had the pleasure of like doing like a Stanley Cup game or something, and there was like a bad call. It was down to the 7th game, and it was like a 1 point. You make a bad call. Man, I wonder if like you walking down the street, if you'd get like egged or something,
Most people don't know the refs like they know the players.
You got a point. Yeah, they're not as high profile, I guess.
Yeah, you're not nearly as high profile now.
Yeah, no doubt, eh?
Maybe like locally, like I remember when I was like 16, 17, I'd always get like the same like Bantam teams and Pee Wee teams and midget teams that I was reffing.
Mm-hmm.
And there were always these kids, and I remember there was this like set of twins, and like I'd always ref them, and they were on like a AA or AAA team. I can't remember, but like, so one of the twins was like really good. Like he was like the best player on the team, and the other twin was like the worst player on the team. Like he was kind of just like on the team because his brother was on the team.
Is that right?
Kind of thing, right? Because like from a parent standpoint, like you don't want to like have one kid be on one team and one kid on the other.
Yeah.
So it was like they were kind of like a package deal, right?
No way.
And so the twin that wasn't as good, he was always like a goon. And whenever he'd see me, or like I'd see him, we'd always just be like, oh yeah, just like
he's just there to fight.
Yeah, I knew it was going down, and like he knew it was going down, and I remember like kicking him out of like a lot of games too.
Is that right?
And he'd always just be like, you have something against me or something like that. And then no, I actually ran into him at a bar a few years ago.
Oh.
And I was just like, hey buddy, like I used to ref you, like I used to like throw you out of games all the time. And he was just like, he's like, yeah, you were just doing your job. Like he's like, I get it. Like, he grew up. So yeah.
Thought you were gonna say he turned around with a haymaker.
No. I'm taller than him. So.
Oh, there we go. There
Yeah.
we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. No, yeah, I don't know. I love sports. I've always been a sports guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, most people in hockey too are like on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're not friends.
Mm-hmm.
But then as soon as you like take the skates off and all the equipment off, it's like, yeah, you're just doing what you needed to do out there. You know, like that's just what hockey is. So.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to do that in kind of any sport because at the end of the day, like obviously sports are sports and it's highly competitive and stuff. But at the end of the day, like you don't want to hold a grudge, right? Like you don't want to turn around and say like you had a really close friend that ended up playing for a different team, right? That's what you see in the NHL and like pro sports all the time. That like the players are always like congratulating each other, being like, "Oh, good job to you," or "Oh, congratulations," or this and that. Because at the end of the day, it's a sport, right? You're not fighting for your country, right?
Yeah.
Well, I guess to an extent you are in the Olympics, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's all about teamwork, right?
Yeah. Can real estate get kind of like that? Like, for example, like you see some like Joe Schmo like listed a house that you were trying to get,
Mm-hmm.
and then you call him and you're like, "Fuck you," but good job. Like, does that ever happen?
Not really. You know what? Obviously, like the longer you stay, like I think I've started to get to the point in my career where I start to see agents that I do like multiple deals with, and you start to see the agent again and again and again.
Yeah.
There is an element of like, oh, this is exciting, or oh, all right, this might be a challenging one, right? Because you do have kind of a reputation. But I wouldn't necessarily say like if I go into a listing appointment, I'm like, oh my goodness, like, screw you, right? I'm not like that. It's just kind of like, oh, okay, well, let's see if I can win another one, or if it's like, all right, well, I kind of botched that presentation. He won that, for a good reason. And there's a lot of things, but I don't think there's anything like the F you kind of thing, so to speak.
Yeah. No, I meant more like obviously like you're a good sport about it, like like I said, like fuck you for getting that, but like good job.
Yeah,
Good
exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And yeah, we do that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if another agent gets like that you're close with that like gets the listing over you, yeah, sometimes you're like definitely you're a little bummed, but at the same time you're like, yeah, good job. Like you won that for a reason. Time to go back and sharpen my saw, right? Go back and learn, practice more, figure out what you could have done better. That's why, one thing that's really good that Brian does is he turns around, he asks like at the end of the presentation, he follows up the next day right away, turns around and says, okay, well, you know what? Like if he doesn't get the listing, he'll turn around and say, okay, well, for my own professional development, what are some things that I could have done that may have driven you towards, a yes, or what are some things that I could have changed, right? Asking for constructive feedback, even if you don't win it, because like I said, it helps you sharpen your saw because it's a very competitive business.
Yeah.
Right. There's 5,000 agents in Calgary. And, obviously there's like 30, I think we did like 30,000 sales last year, like turnover, but like 1% is doing 90% of the business. Right. And so at the end of the day, it's all about sharpening your saw, making sure you can be the best you can be, that you know the market and that you know who you're talking to. Big thing as well is when you're going to a listing presentation is knowing the personality that you're going to meet. Right. Are they a driver? Are they analytical? Are they expressive? Right. Like the person that you're going to meet is a big thing too, because depending on their personality type, you got to cater your presentation to their personality type. Right. If they're analytical, and you showed up expecting to, if you're a driver yourself, you might have just shown up with like your standard listing presentation and you just run through it, right? But if it's an analytical and you didn't have any stats, you're going to have a tough time closing because analytical people like stats, right? This is the market stats. This is the stats of the community. This is what's going on in your, overall market right now. This is the difference on this property and your property, right? If you don't have those going into an analytical, then you're going to have a tougher time. Or same thing with an expressive, right? If you throw all these stats at an expressive person, they're a lot more along the lines of like, oh, they want you to, feel their house. They want you to know, that, oh, this is the house, they grew up in. You want to be a lot more connected to them that way, right? So you really have to kind of know the person you're talking to be the most effective at your job you can be.
Yeah, like reading people.
100%. Well,
what would you say you're like you're kind of like an expressive person, right?
I'm a mix. I'm a mix between expressive and driver for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not very analytical. I do like numbers. I love numbers, but at the same time, I'm not one of those people that I'm like, all right, you tell me something to do and I have to dissect it and figure out everything about it before I go. I'm like, you tell me what to do, I'm going. Right?
Yeah.
And then I'm also, as you can tell, very expressive.
Yeah, I feel like you always like bring the energy wherever you go.
I try to. You know what? I will say one thing for anybody listening. Energy is everything. Like I have gotten listings over the phone that I've never met just off of energy. And that is such a big thing because you have so many people that walk out there and they walk into a room and they're just, oh, hi, how you doing? Or mopey or sad, and they're not energetic, they're not outgoing, they're not excited. You know, if you're excited to be there and you express that you're excited to be there, you're excited to hustle, you're excited to do,
It's
you know,
contagious.
good by the listing. Exactly. Typically 9 times out of 10, the other person's going to reciprocate it, right? And if you're excited about something and they're excited about something, it's going to go well, right? But if you walk in there, oh, well, here's this, here's that, right? If you're not like that, like, you gotta be energetic. You gotta bring the life. You gotta enjoy what you're doing because people like to work with people that enjoy what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right? That's a big thing.
How does someone, let's say, who's like analytical, how do they bring the energy? Do you have any advice on that? Like, or do you think you're just like a natural at it?
Well, I don't know. Like, it's energy. Energy's energy, right? Like, if you're talking to an analytical person, just because, you know, you're bringing energy doesn't really make any change, right? Yeah. It's just being excited, right? So, like, say you were an analytical person, right? I wouldn't treat you any differently, right? I would still be the same energy. I'd still be the same outgoing and everything like that because you're right. It's contagious. Same thing with a smile, right? The more you smile, the more likely the other person's going to smile back, right? The happier you are, the better you act, the more professional you act, and the more outgoing, things like that. It's going to be reciprocated, right? And at the same time, though, when you're talking to an analytical person, I'm still going to have the same energy whether I'm talking to an expressive or if I'm talking to an analytical. But if I'm talking to an analytical, I'm going to be dialing a lot more on the stats and the communities and things like that and the statistics. Whereas on maybe more of an expressive, I'll focus a lot more on, say, like the family photos or like the way they designed the place or how they, you know, how smart of a decision it was to, you know, renovate the kitchen. Oh, that was such a beautiful, oh, I love the, you know, range hood. That was such a good call. Like stuff like that, right? So it really makes a difference, right? You can be the same person. You're just catering one, you know, you're not going to necessarily with an analytical walk through and be so expressive over the little things. You're going to be more focused on statistics where, like I said, in expressive, you're going to be more focused and more explosive on the little things.
Yeah. I noticed like when I'm sitting in the living room, like doing my work, like today you're like, bro, I'm so pissed. And then you pick up the phone and you're like, I'm feeling like $1 million right now. Yeah.
You know what?
I'm living the dream.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what? How many people tell me that? They're like, oh my goodness, man, you're always so happy. I was just like, you know what? I got into the business and I also said too, when I first got in, I was like, you fake it till you make it. Right? Just because like you hear on social media all the time, like especially door knockers, you hear this a lot with door knocking and cold calling, where it's like, never judge somebody that like is pissed off or cussing you off the phone or whatever, you know, whether it be a door or a phone call or anything like that, because you don't know what their story is. You don't know what their day is like. Right? And I hear that so often and I just kind of sit back and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to let, you know, a bad 30 seconds wreck the 2,600 you know, or, you know, million minutes I have in my day or whatever it is, 2,600 minutes in my day, right? Like I'm not going to let it destroy it, right? And the next phone call I make, right? Like going back to that door knocking, I'm not going to sit there and take crap on the phone and then pick up the phone and call somebody and carry that crap over to that conversation.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to kill it before that conversation so I can be as energetic as possible. Right? Because I don't want to carry that over and I know that it's contagious, right? If I bring over crap, it's going to continue crap. Next thing you know, you got a shitstorm rolling down the hill, right? If you cut it off though, you got a bag of burning shit on the front porch and you're driving off, right? Yeah. That's it. And so that's kind of the way I look at it. You got to put what you put into the world is what you get out.
100%.
Right?
Yeah. So tell me about, this crazy Calgary market right now. I know like Brian told me, I don't know if you were here or there when he said that, but he was like, all you have to do to get a listing nowadays, show up on time and look professional. So yeah. That's
a big part. It's a big part.
Yeah.
Brian loves to say that too. Brian loves to say like, if you show up, like realtors, everybody expects you to be professional. You're already supposed to be a professional. When people call you and they set an appointment with you, they expect you to be professional and to know what you're doing, right? So obviously, unless you're competing with a bunch of people, but when you are going to a listing presentation, right, and you're professional and you show up and you give a solid presentation, everything goes well, you know, as long as you're not competing, yeah, you're probably going to get the listing, right? Us realtors like to screw it up though, right? We put our foot in our mouth. We don't do our due diligence. We don't do anything like that. We don't show up professionally, right? At which time you're playing a losing game. You're not being a professional at that point. And that's what people expect when they call you. So it's 100% right. If you show up, you look professional, you've done your due diligence, good chance you'll get the listing. And you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever had, like in the earlier days, like someone just like show you a house real quick when you were like door knocking or something like that and just be like, all right, what's it worth?
Oh, 100% all the time. Yeah. It was the funniest story. I think it was back in Livingston. I was door knocking after a recent sale that I had. And I was like, I'm not a big door knocker. I need to become more of a door knocker, but I'm not a big door knocker. I don't know. I love the numbers and how fast I can rip through over the phone, things like that. But this one property, I sold it and I was like, it was one of the highest sales in the community at the time for like a house under 2,000 square feet. Okay. And so I'm like, I'm going to door knock this whole area. I'm going to target properties, things like that, just to make sure I'm using my time. So I'm going around door knocking. I'm probably, I don't know, maybe hit 50 doors, 100 doors, right? Mm-hmm. And this one guy, he brings me inside of his house right away. Like I'm talking to him outside. He's like, oh, you want to come see? I was like, yeah, sure. And he's touring me through the house. And then he's like, oh, I'd also love to get your opinion on my basement, right? And then he takes me through his basement, which he's currently developing into a basement suite. And those are the type of interactions you run into. Those are the type of interactions you get. It's a fun thing.
Yeah. So I guess like in the earlier days, like obviously you probably wouldn't know like what a house is worth just like off the top of your head, right?
No,
or
not back in
or
the
just
day.
have like a range.
No,
like
not
where
back.
you just kind of like
Actually, you know what? I
just
wasn't
like throwing
terrible.
stuff out there, like throwing mud at the wall, see what sticks. Kind of.
No, you know what? Back in the day, the thing that I did the most, because actually, you're right. When I first got in, I couldn't walk into a property and be like, this is the range you're looking at. I still, like, I can do that, but there's so many more variables, right? Especially with the way the market is in Calgary, has so many communities. I can give a pretty solid idea on what your home's worth, but at the same time, obviously due diligence, because you want to get the best analysis. But when I first started, I would just preview homes. I previewed like so many homes. I think at least one to two a day, at least, right? Especially when I wasn't busy like showing houses every day, right? Because the more you're previewing houses, the more you're seeing the product on the market, right? The more you're getting an idea of the market, right? You're previewing the new listings when they, come onto the market first in the morning every day, right? You're looking at what the market's doing. The more you're out in the market, the more you will understand the market, right? And the more you study and the more you do your due diligence, like I said, looking at the market stats, previewing houses, things like that. That's what kind of gleans the skill, or the result is you being able to walk into a property and say, hey, you know what? There's this, and this house in that area. This is the rough ballpark you're going to be looking at for your home, right? So you do that enough, you'll get to that point.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science.
I remember people at the car dealership all the time when I was selling cars. They'd come in and they'd be like, what's my car worth? And I'd just be like, what is it? Like, oh, it's a 2013 Kia Forte with 46,000 kilometers or whatever, right? And I'd just be like, well, like, what's the condition? Like, how are the tires?
Mm-hmm.
Did you take care of it? And they'd just be like, yeah, just spit me out a number. And I'd just be like, well, like, I'm not that good.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think anyone's that good, actually.
You can't.
Yeah.
Very much like you said, like we run into that all the time. Like, give us an idea of what your home's worth, right? Give us an idea of what your home's worth. And then you turn around and they're like, we sit back and we're like, well, can we have information? Like, how many beds, how many baths, especially if they're not on MLS, right? Like, how many beds, how many baths? Like, did you do any upgrades? Did you do the kitchen? Did you do the bathroom? Is the basement finished, right? Things like that are necessities to know, because that can drastically change your home value.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, Connor's giving us the 5-minute warning.
Yeah, I saw that. I looked over.
Yeah. So, like, real quick here. So, what's your plan to, like just crush 2024?
100%. No, 2024 is going to be a very exciting year. I'm very excited for it. The thing about 2024 that I want to do, that I want to focus the most on, is kind of training real estate to be a little bit more of a business as opposed to a job, right? Focus on building out systems, building out aspects of, within the team to ensure that, if I want to do 50 deals this year, how do I amplify that to 100 deals next year with the same amount of input? That's the thing that I'm very focused on right now. And at the same time, I'm also focused on consistency. Consistency has been my biggest challenge so far in the business, because you don't have anybody telling you what to do. So it's a constant effort working on it, making sure you're sitting down, you're, doing that. You have your power hour from, 9 to noon or 8 to noon, ensuring that you can crush out, every day. And it's the little wins that'll compile. If you win enough days, you'll win enough weeks. If you win enough weeks, you win enough years, and you win enough years, you win the life. Mind blown.
Whoa. Yeah. That's, yeah. It's people are like, I guess we're getting all like internet guru-y, but it's some people are always just like, yeah, if you win the morning, you win the day, and if you win the day, like, you know, kind of just like what you were saying too, right? But
I watch way too much of that stuff.
yeah. Yeah. So what are you gonna do to like scale it? Like, I know you were talking about like the ISA thing.
Yeah, I really want to test out ISAs.
Yeah, that like
Right.
blew your mind, eh? When we were basically doing it already.
It was. It really did. Well, and
Yeah.
that's the thing, because I hate to say it. Everybody runs their business differently, right? But I look at a lot of big teams, and a lot of big teams, they have ISAs. They have ISAs, they have customer care specialists. They have a lot of these people in place so they can, so your agent, because right now, I'll sit down and I'll filter through maybe 50 people. I'll talk to 25, and then maybe out of that 25, you might run into one or two that are decent, right? Depending on your skills.
Yeah.
But if I can turn around and take an ISA and filter through 100 people, and they filter out 50 that are decent, then I'm talking to 50 decent, and that might make my conversion rate maybe even 50%.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what I want to try to start doing this year, is heavily focusing on, obviously, keeping consistent, but more importantly, trying to figure out how I can scale it, keep my energy input and output the same, but scale the business. Focus on the marketing, focusing on in-house people to maximize my time. That's my biggest thing I'm focusing on.
Yeah. You know what we should do? We should start some internet beef. Like, just
You want to be trolls?
yeah, we'll just like troll each other. Yeah, start some like internet beef. Like, get everyone like, I don't know. People just like drama for some reason. Like you were saying with like, like Sean and Max, right? Like people just,
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
yeah,
It was, yeah, you're right. It's, what people like, shout out to Sean. People follow personality,
yeah,
right? They do. They love being entertained, right? At the end of the day, like back in the day, people would shell out just listed, just sold, just listed, just sold, market stat, right? If you're a viewer, are you really enjoying that unless you're super in tune or actively looking to buy or sell? No, you want to follow a personality. Look at any other person on the internet. Kim Kardashian or Kylie Jenner, right? This is going to talk about the Kardashians, regrettably.
yeah,
But Kylie Jenner Cosmetics has a few 100,000 followers. Kylie Jenner herself, millions and millions, right? Because people follow personalities.
yeah.
And that's what it is.
The one that comes to my mind too is just like, I don't know the exact one, but like Nelk versus like Kyle from Nelk.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kyle's probably got like way more.
100%.
Yeah.
Because people follow a brand. That's why you see all these influencers that can go out and start companies, and the company will rock it because they have a following. People follow them. If people follow you enough, they trust you enough, then if you put a product out, it's almost bound to succeed if it's good. I'm not saying you can just throw crap on a wall and make millions, but it's easier when you have a large crowd, because at the end of the day, where eyes are, attention is, and where attention is where the money flows.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
All right. Well, we'll start some internet beef. You and I.
You see this guy, man?
Oh, man, this guy's so shit at Fortnite.
Yeah, right. Fortnite crap, man.
Yeah.
Look at this. Look at this podcast, bro. What is he doing? No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. He's halfway through the round. He doesn't even have an epic gun yet. Oh, this guy's dust.
Yeah, shout out. We just started playing Fortnite like 2 days ago, so we made a joke that we were going to talk about it on the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty dust at Fortnite, but I don't know. I got a victory royale that one time. So
Yeah, so did we. So did I. I think that was because we were like level 1 or 2. I think that's why.
yeah, the way I won was just like
Yeah.
totally moronic.
The minute we took,
I killed like nobody. It was just like the last person. Remember?
I know you
I
camped.
just hid the whole game.
You
and
camped out in the G-Wagon, and then you ran over the last guy. Yeah, it was so funny. I was just like, I don't think anybody could win a game and only have like 2 kills.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, we'll rip that tonight. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
See if we can pull out another dub,
Yeah, Connor's invited too.
There we go.
Play Fortnite.
You're in.
Yeah.
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 You can see it on the face.
Yeah.
He's in.
He's in. Yeah. All right. I think that's a great way to end it. So
Amazing. Well,
Yeah.
appreciate you having me on. It was a lot of fun. Let's do it.
yeah. Likewise.
Have a great 2024, all right?
Yeah. I'll see you later.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll
see
see
you
in
in
a few
Fortnite.
hours.
Yeah. See you in Fortnite. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that it?
I don't even know what that is.
Oh boy, you're in for a treat. We're good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess this is like the lost part of the podcast.
This
or
is
like-
the PS.
Yeah, the PS. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the final take.
We ended it off, but like we started it back up
Exactly.
just to give you like a little bit more. Like we know the people listening want more, right? So
Exactly.
yeah. So why do you like working with QuikSell?
The people want more.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know what? I think at the end of the day, it's all about quality in your brand. That is the biggest reason I like working with you guys. Like, obviously, you found me on Instagram, and I used you guys, and then haven't really looked back. And the biggest thing is I think a lot of people in the business don't value quality, right? Everybody's just looking for a deal. Whereas at the end of the day, this is our quality, right? What you guys offer. You guys have incredible quality, and you guys have high standards similar to us. So we like using you guys because it is a consistent level of quality that we can offer to all of our clients, whether it's a $200,000 condo or a $3.5 million house.
Yeah.
It's consistent. We don't waver both ways.
Yeah, you want to be able to provide a consistent service every time, right? Kind of similar to us.
Exactly.
And it's crazy to me how many or some realtors, like you said, they just want they just kind of want it done, or they want a deal or something.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like obviously as a seller, or just putting myself in the shoes of a seller, like I know I'd want my realtor to put like everything they have into it, whether you know, not just from like the marketing or the photos, but also, you know, like the negotiations and stuff like that. And I think obviously like the marketing is very reflective of your overall like brand and quality, right?
Well, and that's exactly it. You know, I think at the end of the day, when you look at a lot of realtors, obviously business is business, right? Everybody's going to be looking for an element of a deal.
Yeah.
But your quality is directly reflective of your brand, right? If people know you for giving great quality on a $200,000 condo, they might, you know, be more inclined to hire you for a, you know, higher level property, right? But if your consistency is all over the place, like if you're skimping out on say $100 or $200 to, you know, just save a few $100 on doing a cheaper condo, right? Then that's going to be your brand, that you're wavering per property, that you're wavering on your quality depending on what you do, right? Instead of having a staple, this is our standard, this is what we do, and that's similar to what you guys offer. That's why we love using you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. Yeah, I really appreciate
100%.
that. Yeah.
100%. You make a $200,000 condo look like a $3.5 million house.
Perfect.
So, you guys are great.
We'll clip that up. Yeah. Perfect.